Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Lunchbox webinar series. This is our second webinar of this fall series. And we'd like to acknowledge our partner, Lifetime Foundation, for supporting the Chef Ann Foundation programs. They've been a great partner for us. Today, we're going to delve deeper into the subject of marketing and lunchroom education. It's going to be a great webinar today. I want to introduce some of our panelists and our folks that are at the controls. Emily Miller, our Marketing and Programs Associate, is running the webinar today, and she's awesome. We've got this all figured out, hopefully. And I'm Beth Collins. I'm the Director of Operations for the Chef Ann Foundation. And our special guests today are Curry Rosato. She's the School Food Project Program Coordinator for the BVSD Boulder Valley School District. And she's responsible for all the education and outreach programs, including farm to school program implementation and all the different nutrition education programs that the Food Service Department in BVSD operates, including many of the things that she's going to talk about today, so I won't name them all. She was most recently the Director of Operations at the Green Schools Alliance, and she's been developing and coordinating K-12 and community-based education and action for sustainability programs for about 2 decades. Our other guest is someone you may be familiar with, and Chef Ann Cooper. She is also known as the Renegade Lunch Lady. She has been a chef for more than 30 years, and 15 of those is in school food programs. She's the director of the Boulder Valley School District and the founder of the Chef Ann Foundation. Ann and I have been working together for all of that school food time, and she's just a wealth of knowledge. I want to go over our agenda today. It's action-packed here. I'm going to give you some directions on typing in questions, tell you a little bit about the foundation. I want to briefly talk about becoming a registered person on the Lunchbox when you use it. And then we're going to roll into the webinar agenda, which is many points there, so I won't read through them all. We're going to try to keep the presentation right to about a half hour so that there's plenty of time for questions. And what we'd like you to do is on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see there's a QA icon, and it should be set at all panelists so that when you type in a question, all of us will see it. I'm going to be monitoring the questions today, and I'll be asking the questions at the end. It's really useful if you think of a question that you'd like during the presentation to go ahead and type that in instead of waiting till the end. And when we get to the question part, Emily's actually going to use the chat forum to type the question that panelists are answering at that time, so you can see the question while it's being answered. If you have any technical issues during the session for yourself, go ahead and type your technical issue into the question panel. We have a WebEx expert on the session today who can address any of the technical types of things that are happening. So the Chef Ann Foundation was founded in 2009 by Chef Ann, and I was also around back then. There was lots of brainstorming about how we can provide more information to schools well before 2009. And what we ended up coming up with was this idea of a web portal, which is really what got the whole foundation started. So 2009, we had some funding, and we were both in Boulder at the time working on the school district, and were able to found the organization. And our vision really is to assist schools in making the best food they can and providing access to fresh, healthy food. And this is our mission, providing school districts, administrators, food service directors, and their teams with everything they need. The lunchbox is really that tool, that primary communication tool, and then we've really expanded our services through offering grants to school districts and doing webinars, and we're doing technical assistance and things like that. So we're really trying to be a resource for anybody who really wants to use fresh whole food. And with that, I'm going to say one more thing before we start, and I'm going to make our plug for, I'm not actually going to take you through the live registration process like I've done in the other webinars, but if you do go to the Lunchbox to use it, and when you go to it for the first time, you're usually going to see a little pop-up, and it's the registration form. And we strongly encourage you to go ahead and put in the few pieces of information you need to do to register, because that's really how we show funders that people are using the Lunchbox tools. And that allows you to download any of the tools that are up there or any of the resources that you'll be shown later today. You can download them. And it's really important for us to be able to show the funders that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ann and to Curry, and they will take it away.
Okay, thank you, Beth. Thanks for doing such a great introduction to the Chef Ann Foundation. This is Chef Ann, and besides wearing the hat of the founder and president of the board of the foundation, I'm the Director of Food Services for Boulder Valley School District, and we're going to talk a little bit today about the School Food Project. Okay. Oh, skipped one. Little touchy. Okay, so Boulder Valley School District. We have 56 schools, 31,000 students. We have about 20% free and reduced. We're big geographically, spread over 550 square miles. We have over 200 employees. And we are really trying to teach kids the best possible food, serve kids the best possible food. We are doing over 13,000, now almost 14,000 meals a day. It's all scratch cooked. And we really are here to feed kids good food and teach them about the best possible food that they can eat. We only serve in, actually it's 52 schools. We have 3 production kitchens and a catering kitchen and a food truck. Our ADP was up 7.5% last year and 14.5% over the last 3 years. So we're really excited about our participation increasing and the number of kids we're able to cook for and the amount of really great food that we're serving. And we have our food truck that was new last year, where our food truck goes to all of our high schools and is used for catering and special events. So it's the way in the high schools to capture those kids in open campuses who would traditionally leave. It's a great marketing tool because it drives around our 550 square miles. So it's a rolling billboard, and it's really wonderful at events with hundreds and hundreds of people to be able to showcase the kind of great food we do. So why education and marketing? I'm going to turn it over to Curry, who's in charge of all that, and she's going to start telling you about it.
Great. Thank you, Ann, and thanks so much to each of you for being on this webinar today. We've been asking why today we're going to go over our education and marketing tools that we are excited to share with you and hope you might be able to use. But why do we do this? As Ann mentioned, we serve delicious scratch-cooked food, but that doesn't alone mean that kids are going to eat it. So students and parents are often still hesitant, and we feel strongly that education and marketing is key to the overall program success and as Chef Ann says, you've got to be relentless and keep at it. So that's what we're going to talk about today, some of the tried and true resources that we use. Let's get started. So we, in next slide, please. Thank you very much. You know, the lunchroom is our classroom. The time is short here. As you all know, kids come in. Lunch is probably for most of us a little shorter than we would like for it to be. But here we have them. It's our classroom. We can make an impact here through the use of many educational tools that connect our kids to delicious food, where that food comes from, how it is good for you, and why they should eat it. Our Lunchroom Education program goals here at the School Food Project are to encourage students to eat more fruits and vegetables, to try new foods that we have on our menu, and to eat school lunch, to feel good and comfortable doing that. Our programs also connect kids to our local producers, the farmers, the growers, and the ranchers that are providing food that's part of school lunch. These education programs engage our kids, and even the hesitant ones, in going up to the salad bar and eating hot lunch. They really collectively help kids feel comfortable and make lunch appealing and really accessible. So we do about 200 programs a year. We're in our lunchrooms nearly every day. And right now we're going to go through some slides to talk about what those tools are. So first of all, Rainbow Days. Many of you may have heard about or experienced Rainbow Days. They're a great way to engage and encourage kids in making a salad at the salad bar. Here we have some students at one of our schools that actually on this particular day have put parsnips on their salad, so we were kind of excited about that. On Rainbow Days, students are encouraged to put at least 3 colors on their salad. They try new fruits and try new vegetables, and when they do this, they get an I Made a Rainbow Day sticker, and they really feel a sense of accomplishment. We do these programs in elementary schools, and they're really a great success. Students who bring their lunch from home on these days are invited to come up to the salad and make a salad for free. They're really fun events. It's not threatening. It's a great environment. And they truly do help connect some kids to the salad bar and make them feel comfortable eating school lunch. It's quite frequently that we'll hear from parents who say, hey, my child loved that Rainbow Day. I'm so glad because now they're eating school lunch. We like that too. Another tool that we use are tasting events. These are really a lot of fun. I mean, I think we all love free samples, right? Well, kids do too. Tasting events are an excellent tool to encourage kids to try new foods before they're served at lunch. Volunteers or your food services staff, including some parent volunteers too, can create and pass out prepare and pass out samples of a dish which will be served the next day. Kids who are often resistant to trying a new dish or eating school lunch, oftentimes they'll try it and they'll ask for seconds. Just recently, I was bombarded by a group of middle schoolers who wanted seconds and thirds of a new calzone that we're serving. We really see great results from tasting events and increasing our daily participation. It's a great chance to try out a new recipe on kids, encourage them to eat a new menu item. We highly recommend these programs, and later we'll talk about some ways to do that. Next slide, please. So chef demonstrations are also a way to taste food, but a great way they're similar to tastings. They encourage kids to try new foods, and it really appeals to, they get to see and smell and hear either one of a chef from your food services team or perhaps a local chef making foods that will be served at lunch. They provide a great opportunity for your food services staff or local chefs and folks in the lunchroom to talk about and taste dishes and how they're made for school lunch, but also how you can make them at home. We really enjoy the conversations with our students and even teachers. They'll often come up. And we find that these chef demos lead to increased acceptance of the dish. That's great. Next slide. Another incredibly fun program that we run are Iron Chef or Junior Chef competitions. They allow students to contribute to the school lunch menu while learning about the National School Lunch Program and just flat out having a really good time. We hold ours twice a year. You can see here on the left our elementary competition. Some itty-bitty, even kindergartners had teams where they make a best afternoon after-school snack. And then on the right, you'll see a photo of our middle school students, our secondary students, who create dishes, and the winning dish is actually featured on the school lunch menu the following year. In fact, our winning recipe from last year is going to be on the menu tomorrow, and we're really excited about it. Next slide, please. A huge part of our effort in our education and marketing is around farm to school. In the following slides, we're going to highlight many of our farm to school initiatives, some of the tools. And we're really fortunate and thankful for our USDA Farm to School Implementation Grant last year, as well as support from local foundations such as the Colorado Education Initiative and some community sponsors. Thanks to that support, we were able to ramp up our farm to school programs last year. This helped increase local procurement of fruits and vegetables, and we were able to install some school gardens, work with teachers to develop curriculum, take kids on field trips, and more. We're going to talk about those programs here. So as Ann mentioned, procuring local foods, it's really part of our mission. Here you see a sign from a local farmer, and literally these delicious carrots were also, of course, washed, but our students find them on the salad bars. Olin Farms that you see here is one of our farmer partners. We work with about 7 other farmer partners here in our area, and one way that we connect with them is we host a farmer meeting each year. We sit down for lunch. We talk about what they're planting and what we'll be looking to purchase in the coming year. That's okay. So a little bit more about our Farm to School program and what that looks like. It really starts for us with our calendar. Each year, we produce a school lunch calendar. The calendar features our Harvest of the Month featured produce items, depicted in illustrations created by students. Here you can see on the calendar. The calendar art contest is a big project with our communications and food services departments and art teachers. Student artwork is chosen and featured on the calendar. You can also see on our calendars, little tractors are found on days of the week that indicate that Harvest of the Month featured produce item is going to be served. Next slide, please. One tool that we implemented last year is trading cards. We call them our Harvest Collector Cards. The cards correspond with our Harvest of the Month featured produce item. Kids collect the cards when they eat the Harvest of the Month, such as a tomato or a peach, and they get prizes at the end of the year, like a special tour at the farmer's market, market bucks, which is money to buy produce, or bags of produce. This set also includes farmer cards. They're a huge hit. Our farmers sign them for kids at our community events, and oftentimes, we'll talk about later, our farmers come into our schools. One of our kitchen leads reported that since we've had the cards for vegetables, their salad bar produce consumption has increased almost 50%. So we're seeing a lot of success with these cards, and we're excited to share them so that you might be able to use them in your schools as well. We have farmers coming into our schools, as I just mentioned. Here's one of our farmer partners talking to a student about his farm operations. That day he had corn on the menu. Really great conversations and an opportunity to connect the farmer with the students. The students know where their food is coming from and who's growing it. We also were fortunate through our Farm to School grant to provide buses for schools to go out to our farms. There's really no better way to connect with food than seeing it grown on the farm. And the added benefit of having a farmer take you on a tour truly can be a life-changing experience. This This is a picture of a parent chaperone for the day who ate radishes and said she didn't like them before, but since she got them right from the ground, I think she's a convert. Her daughter came home that night and actually asked for a salad. That's success. Great opportunity. Community events are, as we all know, a great way to connect with your community members, and they're just a lot of fun. So each year we host a harvest festival in the fall. It's an event that brings together community members, food and garden partners, and our district students and their parents. It's a family-friendly environment, and it really facilitates an opportunity for the kids and the parents to learn more about our program, the School Food Project. It puts a face on who's producing the food, who makes the tamales, for example, and who are these farmers. In the spring, we host a day with our farmers market. And there, again, at both of these events, our farmers are signing cards, having conversations with families. It's really just a really fun event. And it can be simple, too. School gardens are, as we all know, a great way to connect kids to real food. There's research that shows that when they have a chance to be in a garden, they're going to want to eat that food. It's also an outdoor classroom. Science, math, social studies, health, you name it. The curricular connection is there, and students have a blast harvesting the produce. And in our district, they're able to bring it into the cafeteria and eat it, too. Part of the school garden program is development of lesson plans. So, for example, one of the grades created a lesson plan around harvesting and just understanding selling produce and things like that. These resources are available on our website, and we'll talk about that a little later. We wanted to share, too, before we move into marketing, that our Farm to School and Garden programs are captured in 2 manuals found on the School Food Project's website. It's bvsd.org/food, and we encourage you to take a peek at that when you can and look at those resources, the Farm to School manual and the Garden as a Classroom manual. So let's move into marketing. We're really leveraging our Farm to School graphics that were created last year to create this local food farm feel for the School Food Project. Everything is branded, including our website that you see here. So we encourage you to take a peek at that. It's a great marketing tool. We were fortunate to launch a new website this past year with Farm to School funding. Please do take a look at it, and we encourage you to use your website opportunity to share information about your program. Next slide. We've already talked about it, but the school lunch calendar is truly an amazing marketing tool. You can imagine it's on walls, in homes, and on desks all year long. And we hear from families, too, that often they sit down with their children at the beginning of a week, go through the calendar to find out which day they're going to eat school lunch. Another tool is posters. Lunchrooms are, of course, places to eat, but they're also places to learn. So we like to put posters throughout our lunchrooms. And hosting a student poster art contest is a great way to engage kids in sharing their thoughts through their artwork about local food and healthy food. We'll show you where to find some of these posters created for our district when we do a tour of the lunchbox. This year, we kind of ramped up our signage on our salad bars, and we have similar images to the Harvest Collector cards. We have signs on our salad bars that are connected to what is being served that day. So, for example, if we have carrots from Isabel Farm, we would slide into the lucite frame the 5x7 image of Isabel Farm and also the carrots. We also have salad bar toppers. We'd love to share this graphic with those of you that might be interested. It's just an engaging way, a nice graphic that brings kids into the salad bar and tells them how much they should eat as well. And that's the other side of it. So marketing your program, there's so many ways to do it, some that cost a little bit more than others, but For example, letters to parents, emails at the beginning and the middle of the year. We do that. A letter from Chef Ann comes out, and we get a lot of response. It's a great conversation starter. Social media posts are a great way to engage your community and beyond your community. Speaking engagements. Can you go to a PTA or a PTO meeting? We enjoy doing that. Parent volunteers are key, and the lunchbox is filled with tools and resources to help you get started engaging your parent volunteers. And as we mentioned before, community events are key. So I know we've talked about a lot of different programs now, and we have spent a lot of time in our offices writing grants and raising money to be able to develop and implement these programs. So grants are one way that we're able to implement these programs. Community support, whether it's through funding or sharing the message. Find your community partners, other organizations that can help spread the word about the great work that's going on. And parent volunteers are key. We have a network of about 50 parent volunteers that help with our tastings and rainbow days, and we're excited to share some of those parent volunteer recruitment strategies with you on the Lunchbox. So now we are going to take a tour of the Lunchbox.
We are going to take a tour of the Lunchbox. So here we go. This will just take a second here. Great. So here we are. This is the Lunchbox. You can see it here on your screen. And we're going to go to marketing. I just want to show you a little bit about the Lunchbox itself. We have menus all across the front. We have lots of recipes and menu cycles, which we're not going to go over today, but which I really recommend you take a look at. So as Curry said, we have all of the marketing materials that she showcased here on the Lunchbox. And here's our marketing overview.
Great. So, for example, Ann will take us over. Here's the marketing overview. We encourage you to read through this and get some tips and tricks. Now you'll see we'll go down to marketing your program. And there's a top navigation here that you can see in orange, branding your program, some tips for how to brand your program, and examples of how other districts are doing that. District communication templates, social media, there's photos and funding and partnership resources. We really encourage you to look through these sections and take and use what you're able to. Now we'll go down to posters and signs. When you click on this section, as Ann scrolls down the page, you'll see many different tools that are available to you to download and customize for your schools. We really encourage you to do that. Here are at the bottom the Harvest of the Month collector cards. Again, all fully downloadable. You can send them straight to your printers and use them as you would wish.
So this is really a great tool. They're downloadable, and you can really customize them for yourself. And the idea that you can have farmer cards and produce cards are really great. And here are the posters that we just mentioned. These, again, all created by Boulder Valley School District, middle school and high school students. You are invited to download these and print them off. They really do add a lovely dimension to a cafeteria. We notice that parents and kids enjoy seeing these. So the next section we want to highlight is the Junior Chef Competition section. We talked about that, and it can feel like a daunting task to start this, but we don't want it to. The Lunchbox is filled with templates that you can use, resources, checklists that will help guide you through hosting your own Junior Chef competition. Lunchroom Education is the next tab. Here you can find great ideas and tips, and again, downloadable resources, information on how to make your case if you have to perhaps write a grant or encourage someone else to approve this. Great resources right here for you, including stickers that you can just send
to a printer. And finally, the volunteer and intern section is, again, no need for you to have to reinvent a wheel. There are tools on here such as volunteer recruitment letters, suggestions of who makes a great volunteer or intern. We really encourage you to take a look through that section as well.
Okay, so now we're going to leave the website, and we're coming back to kind of the final piece of the presentation. We'd like to get your questions and start talking about the questions you have. And I think Beth is going to start with the questions.
Thank you, Curry and Ann. That's a great presentation. Amazing, lots of great stuff there. So we do have a few questions, and Emily's going to type the questions into chat or cut and paste them into chat so that the participants can see the question as it's being answered. The first question is, how do you pay for your tastings and your chef demonstrations? It's a two-part question. Do you have suggestions for grants to look out for? How do you guys pay for your tastings?
So we pay for our tastings in a number of different ways. Last year we had a farm-to-school grant that helped pay for the tastings. In previous years we've had other small grants. This year we have a grant from the Lifetime Foundation that will help to pay for tastings and chef demos. However, for all 7 years I've been in the district, we've also done fundraising. So we have gone out and done fundraising in the community, especially for education. And we found that education in schools, in food in the cafeteria is something that we've had really good luck being able to raise money for. Also, though, the Chef Ann Foundation has something called Project Produce Grants. And these grants, and we just have money to be able to give out another 100 in this coming year, enable people to apply. So all of you, if you're looking for that kind of funding, should go to the chefannfoundation.org and look at Project Produce Grants. You can apply for a grant. It's a $2,500 grant, and all of that money can be used for cafeteria education.
Great. Excellent. Okay. The next question is, how do you get parents involved in the program? Meaning, like, how are you guys doing that? Is it mainly social media? How are you really getting parents engaged? Or is it just parents that don't work? I mean, how does that work?
That's an excellent question, and I'm glad it was brought up. There are many ways that we get our parents involved, and we recognize that some parents are working, some parents aren't working. The parents want to contribute, for example, in a variety of different ways. One way that we get parents involved is just starting by checking in at the school, reaching out to a parent-teacher association lead, or most schools have that dynamo parent that everyone knows to go to. So if you're just starting your volunteer program, start with that person. Hey, do you know anyone in the school that would be interested? Secondly, we encourage an email to schools to recruit those parents. Parents for us volunteer, I'll actually back up. So another way is through social media. Growing that social media presence through engaging photos. That helps people feel like they know what's going on at school lunch and they want to be a part of it. That's another way to recruit parents. Each year, I mentioned that Ann sends out a letter to every single parent in the district. That's an electronic letter that goes out, both in English and in Spanish in the case of our district. And we tell parents through that letter that we're having a parent meeting. So, for example, just last week, we had about 15 parents that were interested in volunteering. We sat down, we had lunch. They learned a little bit more about the program, what the volunteer opportunities are, and those being from tasting, physically being there, to just being a parent point of contact at a school. And it was a great meeting. So we recommend hosting an annual, just a lunch in one of your cafeterias. Get those parents around a table and get them involved in the program. And as we all know, once a few lead parents get involved, the message starts to spread. So through emails, through social media, through, just actual meetings, that's how we engage our parents.
Great, thank you. The next question, this is this is more of an operations question, Anne. And the question is, what strategies could you suggest for trying to start implementing scratch cooking in a district with an average free and reduced percentage of 70%, but the schools, for the most part, only have 2 full-time cafeteria staff, and the schools are preparing on site, so there's no central facility. What sort of ideas do you have for this person?
Well, we actually usually suggest some kind of centralized production, even if you can do it for some of your items. So for instance, if some of those kitchens that you're using on site are larger than others, potentially maybe you could make some scratch cooked items in those kitchens and send them out to other kitchens. So in Boulder, at one point, we retrofitted 5 kitchens to be able to ship to the other kitchens. Now we're working out of 3 kitchens. But if you can't do any kind of centralized or regionalized production, which again I think is really efficient, even if they are cooking on all the sites, maybe there's a couple of items that you'd like to move to scratch that you could do in these regionalized or centralized production areas. However, if you are going to do everything on every site, 2 full-time people, depending on how many meals they're doing, is actually, a fair amount of payroll. So you probably could start small and figure out some things. Without knowing your menu, it's hard to say. But even if you could start with some stuff that's pretty easy, like roast chicken, something like that, where you could maybe buy IQF thighs or legs that can be panned up frozen and just roasted in the oven after they're slacked overnight. Something like that is a way to start. But there's all kinds of tools on the lunchbox that really can help you walk through that kind of transition.
Thanks, Anne. The next question is, this is kind of a production question for using local foods, and probably fairly pertinent for this time of year, depending on where you live. If you're getting local corn, which typically comes in bags of, usually 45 ears or so, they're just big burlap bags of corn. How do you deal with processing it? And they're asking about shucking and also cutting off kernels. And I know districts do handle this in a lot of different ways. So how do you do it in Boulder?
First of all, we don't take it off the cob. So we feed the kids the corn on the cob. So there's no cutting it off in our district. However, shucking is problematic. We served corn district-wide a couple of weeks ago, and we were shucking about, I think, 6,000 or 7,000 ears of corn, and it was a big project, but we just shucked. It was our harvest of the month in that month, and that week it was corn, and we really just shucked it, and we just learned how to shuck it fast.
Great. Okay, we've got a few more questions. One is a comment. This came up probably when we were talking about funding. That was mentioned that Chefs to Schools now is offering grants for chefs. I'm presuming that means to get some chefs in to work with education events. And then the next question is, how do you handle liability issues? This is apparently the biggest barrier for our local district to do farm-to-school, liability for the farmers and their employees.
It's such a great question. I get asked that all the time. First of all, there are no USDA regulations that say that you can't eat food out of a garden or that you need special liability for farmers. In Boulder Valley School District, we just have our farmers have minimal liability insurance, and that's really all we do. So there is no thought that we would ever sue a farmer or the farm workers. It's just not how you handle a collaboration and a real relationship, which is what it is when you're working with farmers. A lot of school districts, especially if they have food service management companies like Sodexo, Marriott, Chartwell's, they often have their own minimum liability clauses in their contracts, and that's often what ramps up this idea about liability. But a school board can choose to accept food from small local vendors and local farmers without making them have these massive multi-million-dollar liability insurances. So if your school district is really trying to make these changes, then my suggestion is that the school board can pass a policy that says they don't demand that high liability insurance.
Excellent. This is a question that's directed towards this whole concept of how do we educate kids and get enough impressions on food that they really start accepting the food. And the question is, our school runs an average 74% free and reduced lunch rate. We're trying to encourage more fresh items in our menu, but find that a lot of our students have never seen or tried most of the items besides tastings. What other ways can we go about this? So other than tastings, what do you suggest?
So school gardens and cooking classes are great ways to get kids to expand their palate and explore different tastes. And tastings don't just have to be a complete item. Like, it doesn't have to be a recipe. A tasting could be a bunch of different kinds of apples cut up so they can taste the difference between apples. But there's all kinds of ways to do tastings. Again, beyond that, I think gardens are great. I think cooking classes are great. Chef demonstrations are great. I mean, kids will flock to anybody in a chef coat. So if you want kids to try something new, have a chef there, work with your local partner chefs in your district's area, and get the chefs there to have the kids taste things as well.
Great, thank you. Our next question is, how do you manage crowd control during the lunchroom event since lunch is so short?
We always have at least 2 to 3 people in the cafeteria during the lunchroom event. We also work with the principals and also the principal's assistants or the paras to help us with that. We actually go from table to table. So you did see a picture of the kids coming up to a table for the tasting, but we often take trays to the table. So especially if it's a crowded lunchroom and it's really busy, we go to the tables and give them the tastings and don't have all the kids come up. So we do it both ways. But crowd control really is a collaboration with the principal's assistants or assistant principals, the cafeteria workers, the paras, and really you can serve to the tables. Okay, great. So another question, this is about gardens. With your school gardens, how do you get teachers involved as far as really engaging in the garden education piece? This is something we see in a lot of districts where there might be one person at a school who's really, really excited about the garden and they're kind of like the main person, but then there's a lot of teachers that aren't engaged. What are you guys doing in Boulder that's helping with that concept?
That's a really excellent question, and we do hear that often as there's one key person, but how do you get others on board? Through our USDA Farm to School grant and now through continued fundraising, and fortunately this year, thanks to the Lifetime Foundation grant, we host an annual garden as a classroom workshop. So we've hired a district teacher who is our urban agriculture teacher to host a course. And the funding helps to provide credit for teachers. In some districts, salary credit is the appeal. In others, it's that continuing education piece. That tends to draw more teachers beyond just the gung-ho person at a school. Sometimes teachers are, to have that credit available gets them to a workshop, and then over the course of maybe a day or a short 2 days period, they get their hands in a garden. They learn about the plants. They learn about the soil. They learn about activities that they can do in the garden. They learn about the irrigation. And then with the course credit, their commitment is to creating lesson plans. So that's one way through the actual garden as a classroom workshop. That's one way that we've engaged our teachers. And then as Anne mentioned, there's usually a teacher that's gung-ho about a garden at the school, and we've just viewed ourselves working with our garden partners in the district to provide support to those teachers, suggesting they have a meeting and just giving them tips and tricks on how to build that team of one interested teacher to more.
Great. Got another question here. Do you know of any policy or government agency efforts to build fresh food and healthy food marketing into school budgets? The farm to school and fresh fruit and vegetable grants and funding sources are wonderful, but are temporary. What's a more permanent solution? That's,
So the more permanent solution.
That is a good question.
Yeah, the more permanent solution would be better funding for NSLP, but I don't see that coming anytime soon. However, even though, reauthorization for CNR has been postponed indefinitely, what we do know is it will pass at some point, and then the following year we're going to get a new farm bill. And it's in the farm bill that we might be able to push policy for schools to get educational funding, because commodity foods come out of the farm bill, and if we could get education even tied to the commodity funding in some similar fashion, like 10 cents or 12 cents per meal served the year before, I think that's maybe our best bet. But I don't see anything happening until we can actually reauthorize the National School Lunch Program. So we'll see how that goes. It's not going so good so far.
Yeah, you can say that again. I'm just going to put out there, do we have any more questions?
Yeah, Beth, we have a question. Actually, I can read the question. It says, okay. What was the skill set of your labor force when you were contemplating moving the menu in this direction versus what the menu is now? Was there an increase in the labor hours per site? And how did you sell to the administration on allowing the increase in labor if there was one? All I can say is, if you were here, you'd see smoke steaming out of my ears. This is probably the most difficult issue. Beth and I were doing this together. It could be an entire HR staffing webinar. But what we did is we rewrote all of the job descriptions. We rewrote the entire org chart. We made all of the staff. We went through having all of our staff reapply for the new positions. We cut significant payroll out of the individual school sites to staff the production sites. And that's really so that we could have the skill sets needed. So when we rewrote all the job descriptions, we had the skill sets as part of those new job descriptions, and then everyone had to apply for the new positions in the district. So we had some people that could be promoted from within. We had some people that we brought in from the outside. We had money to hire district managers and sous chefs out at the sites, and we went from there. It was a painful process. I will tell you, the union worked with us on this and continues to work with us on this, and it has really worked. And overall, our payroll cost percentage since I've taken over has gone down 5%. It's still way too high, but it's gone down 5%.
I mean, a lot of the, just to echo, Ann, a lot of the costs, obviously, on payroll really depends on district policy with regards to at what point benefits kick in. The situation in Boulder was really interesting because the union were supportive primarily because they saw the food service department as creating a professional environment for their union members, which was really respected from their standpoint. So that structuring of the program with this focus on quality and skills was seen favorably by the union in Boulder, and that had a lot to do with the kind of relationship. Instead of just assuming it was going to be a combative relationship to try to change things, that actually was not the case. They had a bigger task to educate their union members in some regards than we had, because they had a lot of people that didn't understand. But 5 years later, you see a really different workforce, and I think in that situation also, the workers who are closer to retirement and just really don't want to go through change, they do tend to matriculate out, and then you end up retraining your existing team and then bringing in fresh energy, and that really does change the climate in your workforce. And it's very I do a lot of work around the country, and whenever I come back to Boulder, I'm always just, it never ceases to amaze me how professional that team is and how organized they are. And it's really due to that, to taking on that task of reorganization. So,
yeah,
do you have any other questions?
Let's see. Yep, there's another question. These ideas are all great if you have a division of food service who want to move in this direction. What would you say to a food service director who claims that if they serve anything except pizza, burgers, chicken nuggets, the kids won't eat it?
Right.
I would say it's an adult problem. And by and large, all of the problems are adult problems. We do not send our children, when we send our children to school, we expect them to learn English and math and science. And if your child doesn't want to learn English and math and science, you don't say, cool, dude, you don't have to. You don't need to learn anything in school. No, we tell them that they're children and that they're going to go to school and learn, because we are the adults, the advocates, and the educators. So why would we possibly, or how could we possibly let 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds decide what they eat without an educational component? They're not in charge. Why would we abdicate that? I mean, schools are drug-free zones. Schools are alcohol-free zones. They should be junk-free zones. And I am here to tell you that children will eat all different kind of things as long as there's an educational component. And I started by saying that we're up 14.5% in 3 years. That's kind of amazing. And it's not because I'm some amazing director. I'm, just like anybody else. I don't have more money. I just have the same kind of problems. But we educate our kids, and we really work with them. And over time, you do see this change happen. We did see a reduction in ADP in year 1. In year 2. Right. And then it came back up in year 3, and we've been going steadily up since then. So I guess if the director does not want to see change, then, there's always the superintendent and the school board to talk to. I will tell you, in Boulder, before I became the director, the then director did not want to make these kind of changes, and the changes were pushed through by a very strong parent group who partnered with the then president of the board of the Board of Education, and they together decided to have an evaluation done of Boulder, and through that evaluation, a strategic plan was done, and I was eventually hired to move through the strategic planning, and that's how that process worked, and it also worked that way in Berkeley as well. So it's not... Yeah. Go ahead, Beth.
Yeah, I want to jump in just briefly. One of the things that Anne's saying, in short, is that that I think is really important is I think it's easy for a food service director to feel in that position that if they change the menu, the kids aren't going to eat it. Because if they feel isolated from the community as far as pretty much, let's say their business manager is saying to them, do whatever you want, but you got to keep it budget neutral. We're not transferring any money to you, blah, 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 that kind of thing. That isolated environment actually breeds a desire to not change. It's one of those things where it's having support for food service by being recognized for what you do and working with other administrative members who will say, yes, we're in this together. It really makes a difference. And a lot of the directors that I run into who are really hesitant on menu change are isolated in their districts, and that's one of the things that is very problematic. So that community piece and stakeholder piece is really important.
Yeah, and I want to just parlay that to say that, by and large, school food service directors are working really hard. They are the unsung heroes, and they need support. So if, you're on this call and you're a parent or an advocate or work for an NGO, it's really important to work with the directors, see what they need, see how you can help. I certainly could never have gone from the chicken nuggets we started with 7 years ago to all scratch cooking without support of the community, the superintendent, the school board, and everyone else coming together to say, how can we help you? And, just to agree with Beth, when a food service director feels isolated and their only contact is the finance department wanting to know why they're spending so much money, then it's really hard to get them to be able to see beyond whatever they're being evaluated on. So it's really important to support them.
Yeah. We're coming to a close. I wanted to thank everybody for taking an hour out of your day to spend time with us. It's really great. I want to remind you that a recording of this webinar will be posted on the Lunchbox. There's a webinar tab that's listed under the Programs tab on the Lunchbox. All of our webinars are available there. There's a recording of a basic tour of the Lunchbox, which takes you through all of the pieces in the Lunchbox. It does have a lot of information in it, so it's not a bad place to start if you haven't spent time. And again, I'm going to encourage you to register when you go to the site. That really helps us out. Our next webinar is going to be October 22nd. It's with Nancy Howitt, who is awesome. She's a retired assistant superintendent of business, and she's my physical half when we go out and do assessments, and has a tremendous amount of knowledge on the whole numbers side, which Ann and I know very intimately. You've got to know your numbers in order to do any kind of transitions in school food programs. So Nancy has developed all of the financial tools that are on the Lunchbox as well. So that's going to be really great. So put that on your calendar. And thank you very much for coming. It's been awesome. Ann and Curry, thank you for all the work you put into the presentation. It's awesome. And Emily, thank you for the technical support and the sometimes nerve-wracking pieces of setting up webinars. So they are a little different than live, but we really appreciate everyone joining us today.
Thank you.